I was in the Marine Corps, United States Marine Corps stationed at Kadena Air Base on Okinawa. So there were three of us, and we were scheduled on May the 29th to fly a 4 hour anti-submarine patrol, 1945. There was Lieutenant Whitfield was the pilot, Carl Hanlon was uh, the radio radar operator, and I was the turret gunner. Sometimes we were flying at 35 feet above the water, other times we might be up 200 feet above the water, searching for submarines. We didn't see anything. And after 2.5 hours, a weather front moved in, and it engulfed us. We flew up to 8,000 feet, and at 8,000 feet, the sun was shining, and we come back down into this weather front. We couldn't find our way out. Lieutenant Whitfield did everything he possibly could to find his way out. We flew and we flew and we flew and we flew back and forth, up and down, and after my logbook says after 6.2 hours, the engine quit. Everything went quiet. Lieutenant Whitfield called us and told us to prepare to have an emergency, either evacuate the plane or have an emergency landing. He did a wonderful job. He brought it down, and we hit the water. And as soon as forward motion stopped, I was out on the wing and pulled the two plungers, CO2 plungers, on the life raft, and it inflated. And by that time, I was on my knees. The water was up to my knees already, and Hamlin couldn't get out of his radio compartment because of the water pressure on the outside of the door. So he needed to come up through my turret and get out onto the wing. Whitfield wasn't coming out of the cockpit, and the plane was just submerging. It was submerging. There wasn't much left of it anymore. And all of a sudden, Whitfield popped out of the cockpit. So we decided that we had to stay awake. One of us had to stay awake all night long. Well, all three of us stayed awake because we couldn't sleep. We were soaking wet, flopping around. The waves were trying to dump us. And we talked to each other, kept conversation with each other, knowing that, so we knew that we were all still around. Morning came, still this weather front was still there. But then Whitfield and Hanlon started searching all the compartments in the two-man life raft and found out the different things that were in the life raft, survival things. Lieutenant Whitfield decided that we're going to have to ration all of these things that we had. We had these malted milk tablets were the ones that we ate for our meal. We ate two a day. Each one of us had two malted milk tablets a day. We took 2 swigs of water a day, and we each smoked 2 cigarettes a day. Cigarettes were important to us at that time. That's the way we existed for the 3 days. Night came, the next morning came, and it was a beautiful morning. The sun came up nice, red over the horizon, and we were really in good spirits. We each said our prayers every day. Every day we had time to sit to say our prayers. Around 9 o'clock on the third day in the morning, we heard the drone of a plane. And immediately we started searching the sky, trying to find this spot, this plane. All of us, all air crewmen had survival gear, and part of our survival gear was this mirror. And the 3 of us started focusing on this spot in the sky, sending SOS, dot, 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 dash, 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 dot, dot, dot. We kept on doing it, and all of a sudden, this plane circled. Made a circle, but kept on going. It didn't come down, it kept on going. So we knew, that lifted our spirits tremendously. We knew now that somebody knew that we were there. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, anti-aircraft shells began to appear on the horizon. We couldn't see the Japanese kamikazes were after some of our surface vessels, but we couldn't see them. They were beyond the horizon. All we saw was the anti-aircraft shells exploding. We watched, and all of a sudden, we see on the horizon where this anti-aircraft shell and the kamikaze attacks were going on. We saw on the horizon, we saw a seaplane. We took the mirrors, we started working the mirrors, and they saw us. They came and they were low. They were down on the water, practically on the water. They came by, and as they came by, the side door on the seaplane was open, and there was a man standing in the open doorway, and he waved to us, and they kept on going. They didn't stop, and we couldn't figure this out. And we see another seaplane doing the same thing. We started with our mirrors, focused on the seaplane, and eventually we made contact with them, and they were the ones that were looking for us. Came down into the ocean, and as soon as when he hit the water, a big wave smashed into the front of him, busted a hole in the bow of the plane. It rolled over the plane, and up to the plane had two vertical stabilizers, and it hit one of the stabilizers and bent that stabilizer. So they taxied over to us, and they got us aboard the plane. And he tried to take off, and he couldn't take off. So he decided he was going to taxi. And eventually they found out he had a taxi 140 miles to the seaplane base. It took 12 hours. I came out before we had this accident. I came out with 3 other air crewmen in a tent. When I arrived at the tent, I didn't have any clothing anymore. I had nothing. They had distributed everything, figuring we weren't going to be back, that we had died, So I got a whole new issue of clothing. Why am I telling this story? Well, I know that those things that occurred on that ocean, that when we left that morning, there were actually four crew members instead of 3. And for those 76 hours, the Lord was with us, I'm sure. Unequivocally, I'm convinced that all of the evidence that sailing down that channel between those oceans, between those storms, making a safe water landing, making the landing on water instead of land, I would probably not be here. If it hadn't been for the man that invented this mirror, I probably wouldn't be here. So I think the Lord is so much involved in each of our lives. We don't recognize it. We don't realize